Alright, y'all, back again with another video here. So this next video that we'll be talking about will be our fantasy landscape, which as you guys can see here, we have 3 images that you guys should have downloaded, which is the castle, the snowy mountain, and the dragon photo. So once you guys have that downloaded, we're going to go over to Photoshop, open up Photoshop, let that load up for a second. Please don't mind my desktop. There's a lot of stuff I got to get rid of. Alright, once Photoshop opens up, we are going to go to File, Open, and we're going to open up our snowy mountain photo. Alright, so again, File, Open, and we're going to open up our snowy mountain photo. Alright, once we have this mountain photo open up, I'm just going to go to Control-0 to make it bigger. The next thing we're going to do is File, Place. Go down to File, Place, and we're going to place our castle picture on top of it. Alright, we're going to hit Enter on this. Just so we can place it, we want to leave it the same size as it is, so that when we start sizing it, we obviously want it to be bigger, so then when we cut it out, the resolution is still good for us. Alright, so you're going to place that and hit OK. Alright, the next tool that we're going to be using is our quick selection tool. So I know before we've used our magnetic lasso tool, which will cut out the image and everything, but for this one we're going to be using the quick selection tool, which can be found here, the 4th tool from the top. Alright, now this might be kind of hard to explain over the computer, but I'm going to try to do my best. When you're on the quick selection tool, there are a couple things that you want to understand. That right now there's a plus sign. Alright, there's a plus sign, which means that you can add selections. As you can see, I can add selections. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go around here. I'm clicking and I'm holding it down. I'm holding down that mouse trigger and I'm pushing the selection towards the outside frame. Alright, so as you can see, I'm not going anywhere close to the edge of this castle. I'm just kind of pushing, slowly pushing the selection towards the outside. You never want to be too close to the edge. Alright, so as you can see, my selection is now fully selected by using the quick selection tool. Again, right now you can see that I have the plus sign. If you hold down the Alt key on your keyboard, you can see that it changes to a minus sign. So if I release it, you can see that it's a plus sign. If I select the Alt key, you can see that it is now a minus sign. What the minus sign does is, if there's any reason where I would have accidentally selected too much over the edge, alright, if you hold down that Alt key, it's going to delete the selection. So you're clicking and holding it until it deletes it to where you want it to originally go. Alright, I can see there's a little spot down here that I kind of want to get to. Click there. Alright, so I'm scrolling around here just to see how my selection looks, and I think it looks pretty good. Alright, now that I have my selection selected, the next thing I want to do is go down here into my layers panel and select the layer mask button, which will give me a layer mask. Alright, so this layer mask here pretty much gets rid of everything that is not selected. Alright, so this is another way how you can cut out an image without fully getting rid of the background, and I'll explain that right now in a second. Alright, so when you have a quick selection, or when you have your layer mask layer, you can see that the layer is now changed. You have the outside, this positive and negative picture of your actual picture. As you can see, the castle's right here. The colors that you want in your color palette are black and white. I'll show you what each one of these colors do for you. Once you go to your eraser tool, okay, my eraser is too big right now. There's different ways that you can change your eraser. You can go up here at the top. You could change the hardness of it. I'm going to make this 100% so it's harder. And I'm going to change the size down here. And then you can move your mouse over just to see how much it is. I think somewhere around here is pretty good for what I need to do. Alright, so let me show you what each one of these colors does for you. So when you have white, this kind of thing, this little saying that I want to say to kind of help you remember it. So white is not right. White is not right, which means that I want to get rid of something. Alright, so if I have my eraser tool out, white is not right, that means I want to get rid of something. Alright, so as you can see that there's some grass here that I need to get rid of down here at the bottom. Just trying to get rid of most of this here. So again, white is not right. So it's allowing me to erase. See here, a couple little things here I want to get rid of. Alright, again up here. White is not right. Black brings it back. Alright. So white is not right. White is not right. Black brings it back. Alright, so what that means is if I accidentally, let's say, delete part of this image here, most people will either go to the undo button or Control Z to go a step backwards. But with this clip mask that we have here, if I go to the color black now, black brings it back. Alright, so what I'm going to do is kind of paint it back to how I originally had it. Alright, so as you can see here, it might add a little bit of grass to it, but it brings your original layer back, which is why we have the black and white right here. Alright, so now that it brought back some of my grass, I'm going to go ahead and make my brush a little bit smaller by holding or pressing the bracket key next to the letter P. So the bracket key that's facing the left side, that makes your brush smaller. The brush or the bracket key to the right of it makes it bigger. Alright, so those are your bracket keys next to the letter P. Alright, so I'm just going to zoom in. White is not right, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of anything that I don't need. Alright, so for the sake of the video, I'm just going to leave it kind of how I have it right now. Nothing too crazy. Alright, so once we got that, we're going to go back to our move tool, and what I'm going to do now is make it a bit smaller, and I'm going to put it over. Actually, you don't need to make it smaller. Let's leave it about the same size. Put it over on my screen here. I'm going to rotate it just so I can straighten that out just a little bit so it can fit on my screen, and hit enter. Alright. So now that you have your, actually I should say, if you don't have that option to, once you go to your move tool to make the image smaller or bigger, you want to go to edit, and then you're going to go to free transform. So edit and free transform allows you to make your image bigger or smaller by sizing it. Alright, so once you have your castle over to the left side or to the right side, there's two things that we're going to do. First thing is, obviously we're going to be wondering where this branch is coming from within this node environment. So we're going to go to this next tool here, which is the spot healing brush, which is the 7 tool from the top. Spot healing brush, it looks like a band-aid. What we're going to do is hold down the Alt button on our keyboard. So you could get this bullseye right there. Hold down the Alt button. Oh, Brush automatically assembles. Okay. So one thing that I should have said before, make sure that we're not on this layer here. All right, we want to be selected on our original layer. So that's why that message was popping up. So make sure that we're back on our original layer and not on our layer mask. All right, so now that this thing comes up, we got to make sure that we rasterize our image. All right, so we're going to right click on it. Okay, and then go down to rasterize if that's what it needs to happen. So mine automatically did it. Again, I have a more updated version of it, so mine automatically rasterized after that option came up. So now we can get back on track and hold down the Alt button here until you get this bullseye. Okay, let's see what we have here. The spot healing brush automatically assembles pixels to correct spot. Oh, okay, yep. So I guess that was my mistake. So instead of holding down the Alt button, we're not going to hold down the Alt button, and we're just going to go ahead and paint over it. So I'll do that again. So don't hold down the Alt button. You don't want to get this. Not the tool that you need it for right now. So once you have this brush tool over here, we're going to go ahead and paint over this branch. So it's going to look like a black, some black paint that's going over it that you can still see through it. And we're just going to go ahead and release it until you see your castle that looks like this. So what the spot healing brush does is, this is how you get rid of like pimples or blemishes or things like that on like a magazine cover or a album cover or something like this. This is how people do it. It takes images, or it takes surrounding areas of what it thinks it wants it to correct to. So anything that might be a mistake, it takes surrounding areas. As you can see, it filled it in with more brick. So it doesn't look completely, it doesn't look the best, but it does work with what it does for what the tool is. All right. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing. I'm going to do that again for anybody that might have missed what I was saying. So once you go to the spot healing brush, make sure that you are again selected on the actual castle layer within your layers panel. And we're just going to go ahead and click and hold and drag until this is completely covered. All right, you don't want to go into a squiggly line or anything. You kind of want to go in a motion that keeps it formatted properly. All right, so like I said, now that you have this, the next thing that we're going to do is, because we can see that it has now messed up our cross that is up here. So it's supposed to look like this down here, but this is what it looks like because we got rid of that branch. All right, so the next tool that we're going to use is called the clone stamp tool, which is your 9th tool from the top. The clone stamp tool allows us to clone a piece of the image that we need and place it somewhere else. So this is where we'll need to use the Alt button. All right, so now we're going to hold down the Alt button until we get our bullseye. Once you get that bullseye, you want to click anywhere that you want to copy. Click one time and release that bullseye. All right, as you can see, once I move my mouse here, you can see that I have a selection of the cross. So I'm going to place it kind of where I see the old one at. I'm going to click and hold it down, and I'm just going to drag until I can see my my brush. All right, so you pretty much painted this in. So as you can see, if you guys are looking down at the bottom here, you can see that there's a little cross down at the bottom. There's a little plus sign down at the little cross that's towards the bottom, which is indicating what piece you are copying. All right. So now, as you guys can see, that we have a copied cross that we copied from the bottom here. All right. That is by using the clone stamp tool. We clone this cross down from the bottom to the top. All right. So now we are completely done with our castle. The next thing that we're going to do is file and place our dragon. So file, place, Now we're going to place our dragon image here. Go ahead and select enter to paste that in. Alright. This next tool that I want to use is simply because this one has a lot of sharp edges and everything. But the background is completely white with this dragon that is brownish, so you can see the outlines properly. The next tool that we're going to use for this one is the magic wand tool. The magic wand tool is pretty much what it says. It's magic. Alright, not literally, but get the point on that. So when you click once within this background here, you can see that the dotted lines, or the marching ants as we call it, lines up around the entire dragon. The nails, the teeth, the tongue, everything that you can kind of see. Primarily because, like I said, this is a white background, so it allows it to see more of the sharper edges compared to this brown dragon which has hard edges on it. Alright, so we're going to get rid of this background right here. Let me go ahead and right click on this to make sure that my image is rasterized. It wasn't, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to go ahead and hit backspace or delete on my keyboard, which gets rid of my background. Alright, Control D gets rid of those dotted lines, and now I can go ahead and go to File or go to Edit, Free Transform, and I'm going to make my dragon a bit smaller by holding down the Shift key and dragging the top right corner, so I can keep my dragon the same dimensions around. So I don't want to change the size of it. Alright, so I'm just going to make it a bit smaller because I want him to fit on the screen still, but I want him to be as big as he can. I'm going to place him over on top of the castle, just about right here. Just about right here. And then hit enter. Alright, so now that we have our dragon placed on our screen here, I'm going to hold down the Alt key and scroll in, because now I want to focus on the mouth, because this is where we'll be adding our fire. Alright, with our fire here, we're going to be using the brush tool. So we're going to go ahead and go to the brush tool, which is our 8 tool from the top. We're going to select our brush tool, and we're going to change the opacity to 60%. Change the opacity to 60%, and we're going to change this first color to a orange. Alright, we're going to change it to a orange. Alright, and we're also going to make the size of our brush, say 11. We're going to make the size of our brush 11. And we're going to change the hardness to about 65%. 65% for the hardness, 60% for the opacity. Make sure that it is orange. Alright. So next thing that we're going to do here is we're just going to paint a couple squiggly lines, which makes it look like, fire coming out of his mouth. Alright, we're going to have a nice little fire coming out of his mouth here. Let's make him look a little bit more ferocious. Alright, as you can see, this is what my fire looks like from a distance, as if it's burning the building here, but that is not all we're going to do with this. Alright, the next thing that we want to do with this one is, actually I did it wrong. Let me go ahead and go back, sorry about that. Let me go all the way back. I know this is for video purposes, but do make mistakes. So we have our dragon layer here. Because we're going to be doing some different things to this, we want to make sure that our fire is on a different layer. That's what I forgot to tell you guys before. So make sure that our fire is on a different layer, so when we edit it, it doesn't edit the dragon. Alright, so within your layers panel, we want to go to create a new layer, and we're going to change the name to fire. Alright, change the name to fire. All of our settings should still be the same, so that's what we're going to leave there. And again, while I'm selected on my fire layer, I'm going to go ahead and paint my fire back the way that I had it. I think that's pretty good with that. Alright, now that we have our fire here, the next thing we want to do is we're going to be changing how it looks. Alright, we're going to be changing how it looks. So obviously we don't want something to have hard edges like this, so we're going to make it look a little bit more flammable. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Filter, Blur, we're going to go to Gaussian Blur. Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and we're going to change it to, change it to 15 pixels. Alright, we're going to change that to 15 pixels and hit OK. Alright. Now as you can see, our fire looks a little bit more smoky. Alright. Fire looks a little bit more smoky. Alright. So the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and duplicate this fire layer. We're going to right click on it and go to Duplicate Layer. So now we'll have a fire copy. Alright, so now you should have 2 copies of your fire. Alright. Once you guys have both of these here, next thing we're going to do is go right here where it says normal. We're going to be changing how the copy of the fire looks. We're going to go to Linear Dodge Add. Alright, Linear Dodge Add, which now turns into more of a yellowish, only because this is still see-through and we have 2 different ones here. Alright, you can see what that looks like with both of these separate. Alright. Now that we have both of these here, we're going to go ahead and merge both of these layers together. Alright, so we're going to hold down our Shift key, select the second fire, so both of these should now be selected, and we're going to go to Control E to merge both of these layers together. Alright, once you do that, you should have something that looks like this, which now looks a little bit more like fire than it had before. Alright. So if you guys want to enhance this flame, we'll just repeat that steps that we had before. Alright, which is duplicating our fire layer. So right clicking here, duplicating that layer again. So now we have 2 of these. We're going to change this normal here to Linear Dodge Add, which is going to make it look, again, very intense. Hold down the Shift key to select this fire copy to have both of these selected, and go to Control E to now blend this together. So as you can see, this looks a lot more enhanced than it was before. Alright. And that being said, that is now the complete project. You want to go ahead and go to File, Save As, and save this as Fantasy Landscape and submit this into your Google Classroom.